Hi, and welcome to episode 47 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. Today is Monday the 29th of August 2016, and my name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown across the internet, and I'm coming to you from the central west of New South Wales in Australia, and it's lovely to have your company. This week's episode is going to have a finished object, a bunch of knitting projects, as well as a prize drawing, a new cal or knit along, and a whole bunch of acquisitions. So there hasn't been any spinning this week, and I feel like I'm swimming in yarn at the moment, so I'm sure you'll understand why there hasn't been any spinning. But on with the show. So my first work in progress, my first finished object. I might not have had enough coffee today. So I have finished my vanilla chow socks. I called these vanilla chow because the yarn is by a company called Mondial, and it's their chow line of yarn, and it's a kind of self-striping, self-patterning, I guess you'd call it self-striping, even though some of the stripes are a little bit variegated. These are a pair of socks for my mum, and I knit these because when I bought the yarn I thought that it was going to be kind of a blue yarn, and my mum likes blue. It's not quite as blue as I expected it to be, but I'm still really happy with them. I knit these with 64 stitches for the leg and the foot, and it's the first time that I've knit vanilla socks with 64 stitches, and I did that because I wanted them to be a little bit roomier. I like my socks a bit tight, but I think my mum likes them a little bit looser, so she should like these a lot. I probably should have knit the second sock from the outside of the ball just to reverse the stripes, because they look a little bit matchy, but not really, and I probably would have preferred them to be definitely not matchy, but I don't think I guess most people wouldn't notice, but my mum's a knitter, so I'm worried that she's going to think that I just stuffed up, but I'm sure she's going to love them. I knit these with my higher sharps, my 15cm or 6" higher sharps, and I love using them on socks. They work really well. I find that they're nice and quick and smooth and sharp and all the things that you want, or at least that I want when I'm knitting my socks for most yarns, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So they're nice. I did a standard toe. I should actually at some point share how I do my toes. I sort of do decreases on both sides every second row up until I'm halfway through the toe, and then I do them every row, and then I just put the tail of the yarn through the final stitches and cinch it closed rather than doing a Kitchener, and I find that a nice and simple toe. Not that I mind the Kitchener stitch, but I just don't find it necessary for socks. So they are done. I have also been working on my shawl. So this is the shawl that I'm designing, and it doesn't have a name yet, and it's not finished yet, but I think it will probably be finished in the next week or so. I've got 40 grams left of my 100-gram skein, so I want to make sure that I have enough left for a square on my blanket, and also so that if other people are knitting it from a fingering weight skein of yarn, there's a little bit of leeway in case they knit at a looser gauge, or if they have a skein with less yardage. So this is how it's sort of looking at the moment. From a distance you can't see too much, but up closer you'll see that there's some texture going on in there. So I'll share more about this once I'm done. At the moment it's not quite up to my wingspan. I think I'm going to go to my wingspan and just a little bit more, so it'll be about probably 5'8" or so in width, which I find to be a nice width for a shawl. And I'm knitting this from some Skein Uptown sock, so I've shown that in past episodes, so I won't go into too much about it, but it's a singles yarn with beautiful yellows and greys and cream colours in there. Absolutely loving the yarn. So maybe next week I'll have that finished, and then I might need some test knitters. So in particular, as a continental-ish knitter who does her purling as Norwegian purling, I'm curious to hopefully find somebody who is an English knitter to test it out, just to make sure that it works regardless of knitting style, I guess. My next work in progress is I've put a couple of squares on my sock yarn blanket. So I put in a square of the Mondal Chow yarn that I use for my mum's socks, so that worked up nicely. And I've also done a square of some Dingo Dye Works. This is in the Yarloop colourway, and it's a really beautiful colour. Kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's not army green. It's more of a natural green somehow. This, I believe, is in the Fair Dinkum base, which is a 100% merino, not superwash yarn, and it was actually interesting to work with. It has a different feel to it to other sock yarns that I've been using. I wouldn't say it's sticky. It has a nice, it feels like yarn. I don't know how to describe it. It has more body to it, I guess you could probably say, than quite a lot of other yarns, and it was absolutely wonderful to knit with, and I definitely want to be getting my hands on some more. I have a few more minis to add to the blanket, but they're in solid colours, and I'm trying to avoid putting two solids next to each other on my blanket, so they'll be coming up in upcoming episodes when I put them in, but definitely like the feel of that yarn, and the dye job is amazing, so really lovely from Dingo Dye Works. What else? I have been casting on some new socks. Last week I was showing some yarn that I wanted to play with. So this is the Grundle Hot Socks Cotton Stretch Sock and Wool, and when I was reading out the fibre content last week, I mentioned cotton, virgin wool superwash and polyamide, but I missed that there's something called Elite, so 7% Elite, and I'm guessing that that is the stretchy part of it, so some kind of elastic component. And I have a little sock. That's the strangest looking sock in there, but this is my first Rose City Rollers sock. So the Rose City Rollers is a free pattern, and I've forgotten to write down who it's by, but I will make sure that that goes in there somewhere. And quite a lot of podcasters and other people have been knitting these socks, so I thought having some shorty socks with a cotton content might be good for summer. So that's how my sock looks. Just a tiny little cuff that rolls over, so it's just a stockinette section. The pattern suggests doing at least 1 inch and perhaps 1.5 inches, so I did 1.5 inches just to make sure that there's enough for it to roll over comfortably. And I've done the heel in the way that they described, and I sort of did a slight difference when I was picking up my stitches, in that on the first round, after I pick up my stitches, I always knit the picked up stitches through the back loop, and it's hard to sort of show here, but it just gives it a bit of a tighter join at that at the picked up stitches. So I haven't got far, but it is a self-striping yarn, as I was kind of expecting, but I wasn't expecting the stripes to be different widths, so there's some sort of skinnier ones and some fatter ones. These larger stripes just because you're only working across half the width of the sock, so it'll be interesting to see how the stripes sort of appear once I knit further along on the foot. But it seems like it's gone very, very quickly. I only cast this on the other night, and I'm already up to the foot. So one interesting thing that I had with this was that I cast on this sock with my carbons because I hadn't used my carbons double pointed needles for a while, and you can see that they're now on my zings. So when I was knitting with my carbons on the first few rounds, I found that the yarn was really, really grabby. It just felt like I was having to drag every single stitch, and it was taking a lot of time to sort of knit. And I figured that was because of the type of material that the carbons knitting needles are made from. So I decided to change onto another set of double pointed needles. So these are 2.25mm needles, which are US ones, and I changed over to, I think I changed to my higher sharps. I sort of just knit one needle onto my higher sharps, realised that that was really draggy as well, so then I knit onto my Knit Pro Symphonies. That was really draggy as well, and then I put my zings on, and I ended up having 4 different knitting needles on there, and I was just sort of moving the needle in and out of my stitches to see how grabby it was. But you can possibly see from that there's a drag. It should be sort of sliding a lot easier than that, or rather it shouldn't be because of this yarn composition, but on sort of merino and nylon yarns, needles slide easily. So it's one thing to be aware of if you're working with elastic yarns, because I'm assuming it's the elastic that's causing the drag. I wouldn't expect cotton to have that sort of impact. But yeah, I think it's the elastic. So if you're working with elastic yarns, not all needles are going to work as well with the yarn as others. So it was a fun little experiment to sort of see how that worked. I don't think there's much more to say about those. It's a fun little pattern. The heel was a little bit different to my normal heel. It's a short row heel, but I often do sort of a rectangular section for the heel, and this one sort of goes out wide, so I'll be interested to see how that fits my foot. Yeah, I think that's it for that one. In the Ravelry group, we've been chatting a bit about what types of knitting and crafting people want to try out. So colour work seems to have been a recurring theme. Things like brioche and ferrule knitting and stranded knitting have definitely popped up quite a bit. So the next knit along for the Give Me a Crown Ravelry group will be a colour work knit along, and it will be called the Give Me Colour KAL. So it's not strictly a knit along, because I'm happy for people to crochet and spin as well. And the idea is just to use 2 different colourways of yarn or fibre to make a project. So the knit along will start on the 1st of September and run for 2 months until the 31st of October. Works in progress will be fine as long as you're not more than 50% of the way through a project, and you need to use at least 50 grams, and I should check the ounces for that, but it's basically half a skein of yarn is enough to qualify. So that means that you can try some mittens or socks or a hat, which can be particularly sort of good projects for people who are trying out a technique for the first time, because you're not working for months on end on a project just to try out a little bit of colour work. Normal rules apply, so you need to be a member of the Ravelry group, and there will be prizes for both the chatter and the finished objects threads. I haven't quite got the prizes lined up yet, but one of them will be a project bag like this. So this is a snap project bag, and the reason I thought that would be good is because you can put your yarn coming out through the different slots between the snaps, so it keeps your yarn balls organised when you're working on colour work projects. So it won't necessarily be this fabric. I'm pretty sure it won't be actually, but I'll show the prizes off next week if I have them all, because I'm trying to think about some sort of yarny prize as well, but the shop that I was hoping to buy from is on holiday at the moment. So I'm sort of scratching my brain to see what I can come up with as a fun prize, but I'll share those as we go along. Did I mention that the chatter thread's already open? So feel free to pop in there and share your ideas about what kind of colour work projects you want to be working on, and also if you need any help or have questions about colour work, then feel free to chatter away, and there will be lots of people in there who are happy to help, and no doubt I will be chattering away as well. I am probably thinking about knitting my summer top for the knit along, and it will be based on these two yarns that I showed off last week. So these are Holsgarn Coast yarns, which are 55% wool and 45% cotton. I think I should have checked that again because it's written in Danish, so if you can read Danish you know what I'm talking about. I have been looking all over the place for patterns for tops, because that's only 100 grams and 700 meters, so it's actually a fairly lightweight yarn, but I haven't done a swatch test yet, and usually you wouldn't get 700 meters per 100 grams of a fingering weight yarn, but I think because of the cotton content, maybe it just makes it more lighter weight, so it's still technically fingering rather than light fingering. But what I've done is I've had a look at Ravelry, I've had a look at different patterns and their how much yarn they need, how much yardage, and I've also had a look at people who have previously knit with Holsgarn Coast to see what kind of projects they came up with that use less than two balls, because they're 50 grams each. What I've done, and I've linked this to the chatter thread, is I've set up a possible cast-ons summer tops bundle in Ravelry. So it has a bunch of different patterns that I've been sort of collecting, and I've been writing little notes underneath to sort of remind myself whether or not the patterns seem to, how likely they are to work. And I think that the one that I will be doing, and this was a suggestion from Tammy, who is Girl So Sheepy and has the wonderful Girl So Sheepy Etsy shop. So the one that I think we'll do is Isla. And so the reason I say we will do is because she is also wanting to do a top. So we've been chatting about different tops to do, because she also has some Holsgarn Coast. And it's a beautiful little tank top, and it has some lace detail at the bottom, and it's just kind of nice and sweet, and I think that it's going to work perfectly for the yarn quantity that I have. I've done my silly little thing, which I do regularly when I buy yarn, is that, well, first of all, I only bought 2, whereas I should have probably bought 3, and that would have saved me a lot of stress. But they're also different colours, so I think I bought these a few years ago, and I think now I'm a little bit more sensible with my yarn purchases. Usually I have an idea for what they're going to be before I buy them, but what I think I'll do is I'll put the blue at the top, and then I will do some pinstripes, so 1 row stripes, once I sort of start running low on the blue, and then I'll use this creamy colour for the bottom and the lace part. So there'll sort of be a transition section in the middle, and then it will turn into the cream. That's my idea at the moment but I'll cast that on in a few days, I think. I think that's it for the Give Me Colour Cal, but if you are interested in taking part, then pop by the Ravelry group and let me know. Next up is the prize drawing for the 1-year podiversary. So this giveaway has been open for the past 2 weeks and I closed it off this morning. It was great to read through what projects you're all sort of thinking about doing soon and things that have been on your list that you haven't quite gotten around to yet. There were definitely quite a few mentions of colour work, as well as mentions of steeking, which is on my list for next year, I'm pretty sure. Steeking, for those who aren't aware, is knitting something in the round and then cutting it up through the middle. So, for instance, you could do a colour work cardigan by knitting it in the round, which makes the colour work a lot easier to tackle, and then you cut up the middle of it to turn it into a cardigan. I will most likely try that at some point, but I'll start it off with a sort of a small, maybe a baby garment or something, just to give it a whirl. But all the best to those who are planning to try that out soon. There was also mention of knitting garments, learning crochet, as well as learning spinning. So I definitely need to get my spinning happening again soon. And if some of you are interested in trying out some spinning, or you're just sort of getting into it, then the Give Me Colour Cal could be interesting for sort of spinning a few different fibres, just sort of spinning up 25-gram bumps of 2 different fibres and then plying them together to end up with a 50-gram ball. And it could turn out interesting, but it's always good practice just to spin something, and I personally find it easier when I have a goal in mind to make sure that I'm sort of making progress on a project. So the first prize, I did a drawing before I started recording because I always have fairly long chats with Siri when I'm trying to do the random number generator from Siri. So I drew for the first prize, which was this medium project bag. So this is one of my wide gusseted project bags, and looks like this. So that easily fits many skeins of yarn. So this one is going to be going off to number 15, which is Buckaroo. So Buckaroo, please get in touch with me, and congratulations on winning a project bag. The second prize, which is a Ravelry pattern up to US $7, so it's a pattern of your choice, went to post number 24, and I'm going to butcher this, but the username is Darcia D, or is it Darcia D? Your name is Darcia. I'm so sorry. I'm really bad with pronunciation of names and things. I'll make sure that your name is here somewhere. So congratulations. If you can also send me a message on Ravelry, send me a private message, let me know which pattern you would like, and I'll try to figure out how to send it to you. I'm sure it should be easy, but yeah, get in touch and we'll sort it out. So congratulations, and thank you to everyone who posted in there. It's always fun to see what people are thinking about doing, and it sort of gives me some inspiration about what projects I could try next. Next up, I have some acquisitions. So my acquisitions are a little bit embarrassingly large this week, but we'll start off with the simple ones. So I got because I've got my sock yarn blanket on the go again, I actually got my replacement needles. So I've got my broken one in here as well, but so I got the Knit Pro Symphony 2.5 millimeter, 120 centimeter. So I don't know why I like this length, but I'm just going to open it. So I'm going to mute while I open because it will crinkle. Okay, so here's my poor little broken one. I've held on to this because there were some suggestions about being able to use chop off the top and put a stopper on the end, and then being able to use it to sort of pick up stitches and all sorts of things. I could also use it for holding, because of the long cable length, I could use it for holding stitches when I'm working on garments and things. So I'm holding on to it. I figure if I break another needle tip, then perhaps I could take the one that isn't broken and put it on somehow. Some kind of MacGyverish thing. But so there's my new one, and it is super long, and I think the original reason why I bought it so long was because I wanted to do 2 at a time socks, and I'd read somewhere that it was a good length to do it. I never quite got around to trying that with these, because I've ended up using 2.25mm needles rather than 2.5. So it's just somehow it just works for me with my blanket. And I also have this one. So this is a 40cm 2.5mm Addy, and I bought this because of all the troubles I've been having with hats and magic loop and what have you. So I wanted to try a smaller circumference circular needle for hat knitting and see if that helps. 2.5mm seemed to be like a good option for fingering weight yarn, so I wish I'd have got myself a slightly larger one for the hat that I want to knit, but I looked at my sockhead hat that I love using, and I'll be using this on something like that soon. And I don't think I've used the Addies too much, but they're looking a little bit blunt, but they should be okay for general sock weight yarn knitting. Now my embarrassingly large acquisitions are in here. So I've got a massive bag from Miss Click Clack, which is just amazing. So I won a prize, and it's an enormous prize, and it completely blew me away, and it turned up incredibly fast, and I don't even know where to start. Those of you who follow me on Instagram and who are part of the Miss Click Clack group will know what's in here already, but I have to share it because it's amazing. And I love Kelly, who is the wonderful person behind Miss Click Clack. I love her attention to detail, because the yarn that she often sends has sort of string tied around it, and it's all beautifully presented, and it has this kind of something like this. But on the prize packages, she'd used a sparkly yarn or thread, and it's amazing. And I've held on to it because I'm sure I can think of something to do with it. So in my package there was this. So this is an amazing boxy project bag by Stitch Pixie, and Peter is the person behind Stitch Pixie, and I've been looking at her boxy project bags for a while, so I'm super excited that I've got this one. It's really well made. It just hasn't been used much yet, so it's getting a little bit squished. Beautifully made. The inside is amazing, beautifully lined, so much attention to detail, and it's incredible. So because it's pink, I think that my Rose City Roller socks will be going in here pretty quickly, but it's really sizable. You could definitely fit a couple of cakes of yarn in there. So thank you, Peter, for sponsoring the Miss Click Clack knit along. Then I have some yarn. So I really wanted to try out a couple of Miss Click Clack bases that I haven't tried out before, because part of the prize was choosing 2 skeins of yarn. So this amazing skein is the Livingston Sport Merino Superwash Merino, 216 meters, 100 grams. And I don't even know how to pronounce it. Califera, something like that. But it's amazing. I fell in love with the colour in her shop. It's nice and deep and rich and green, and I don't know if it's fair to say it's swampy, but I don't mind a bit of swampy or mossy or something. It's something just incredibly rich and beautiful, and I think it's going to turn into a hat for me because it's just amazing. So there's that one. And then I had to try this one. So this is the Melbourne Black colourway that Miss Click Clack is very well known for. So it's coming up perhaps a bit more blue on screen, but it's deep and rich and beautiful. And this is in her Centre Place Singles yarn. So I really wanted to, after having been knitting on the Skein single yarn, I wanted to get some more singles, and I wanted to try out Miss Click Clack's single. And it's amazing. It's beautiful. It's squishy. The colour is perfect, and I was thinking about maybe doing a sockhead hat because the sockhead hat that I have is made from a singles yarn, and it's been absolutely perfect this winter. But it could also be a really interesting shawl. So that one's to be determined. Now, another skein of yarn had fallen into the package, so I wasn't expecting this one at all. Now this is the Bridge Inroad DK Australian Superwash Merino. So it's amazingly squishy. It's very plump. It's 172 meters for 100 grams in a one-of-a-kind colourway. There goes the neighbour's rooster. And I'm actually leaning towards this for the hat that I was going to knit. Because it's nice and plump. Sounds like the roosters turned up in my garden or something. I hope not. Otherwise I'm going to have to go and chase some roosters around. Anyway, so because I wasn't expecting this, I don't yet know what it's going to be, but I have a feeling it's going to be a hat of some sort. So that was amazing. Now, I also got this beautiful Pantone notebook. So it has a great grid in there, and I'm definitely going to be using this as a bit of a knitting journal. And Miss Click Clack also puts in these great Pantone cards with orders and writes a little something special on the back, which I won't read, but her messages are always wonderfully sweet. Now the reason why this amazing bag, and I love this bag, is so full is because I had actually ordered some yarn as well. So I had ordered this amazing skein. So this is in the Darling Road DK Superwash Merino 200 meters for 100 grams in the Silver Bear colourway. And this is what I had been intending to use for re-knitting the hat that I made recently from Corridale. So I think this will show up the diamond pattern really nicely. So I may be casting that on this week, unless I decide to use the other one, but we'll see. And then I mentioned last week that I was getting a cardigan quantity. So this is my cardigan quantity of yarn. This is going to be turning into the Taskutakki cardigan by Veera Välimäki, and this is in the Junkyard Dog colourway. So it's a brown, sort of reddy brown with various other sort of variegations going on through it. And one of the reasons why it's taken me this far into the year to buy my yarn is because I've had some difficulty trying to pick which yarn to use, because the yardage it calls for a sport weight yarn, and this one, it's got 325 meters per 100 grams, so it's sort of in between a sport and a fingering weight in my sort of opinion based on the yardage, but on the wraps per inch I'm not too sure. Whatever the case, I love this colour so much that I will do lots and lots of maths in order to make it work. But I have a feeling that this is going to work anyway, because I had a look at other people who have used this Nightman's Highway base and used the needle size that I'll be using, and they have managed to get beautiful fabric and sort of the gauge that I'm after. So once I knit up a swatch, I will be absolutely certain that this will work, or whether I need to do lots of maths, but regardless, I'm going to make it work. But it's amazing. And I have a feeling I may only need 3, but I got 4 just in case. It looks like an adaptable pattern so that I can shorten it if I don't want to make it so long. But I expect I'll get through 3.5 of these. I'm so happy. Very, very happy to have some yarn, and the idea was that I would have these and this, and to me that felt like a lot of yarn, and so having 3 more skeins was a bit of a surprise. Anyway, I have been rambling along for a very long time now, so I think I'll leave the other random little chattery bits to next week. Yeah, I hope that you pop by the Ravelry group and join in the Give Me Colour knit along, and even if you just chatter away, if you've had some experience with colour work projects before, whether they've gone well or haven't gone so well, it would be lovely to know. But if you want to take part, then it would be great to see what kind of projects you're thinking about knitting or crocheting or spinning. I feel like I've just shown off lots and lots of yarn, and I feel a little bit guilty, but I hope that an enormous pile of yarn lands in your lap sometime this week, and if it doesn't, then maybe just have a bit of a swim in the yarn that you have in your stash, and yeah, enjoy what you have and enjoy anything that comes your way, and I hope that you're getting lots of crafting time, and I'll see you soon.